2010 or some shit. But yeah, so the Charlotte Hornets are getting 2 second-round picks: Daquan Jeffries, Charlie Brown, and Dwayne Washington Jr. from the Knicks. And the Knicks get Karl Anthony Towns and the draft rights to James Najee. And yeah, that's the trade.
All right, guys. So we're basically going to talk about what this does for the Knicks, what this does for the Timberwolves, and does it move the needle for either one of the teams? I like to start off where I think the Knicks got better. They figured out their whole center situation. They figured out the minutes between, like, is Julius Randle going to play? Is OG going to play? Is Josh Hart going to play? DiVincenzo going to play? Supposedly DiVincenzo already came out and said that he was not with it to come off the bench and lose all the minutes that he felt he worked for. So I think the Knicks got better in terms of a team, but do I think they got better than the other teams that were already ahead of them in the Celtics and 76ers, in my opinion? I don't think they did. Anyone else?
All right, so since I'm the special guest, I'm going to set it off. Special guest and the executive producer, why not spring it to me first, right? The Knicks just changed the landscape of the NBA. They're going to be for the next 5 years, you could pencil them in for a top 4 seed every single season, at least for the next 4 years, bare minimum, right?
They got to extend Karl Anthony Towns.
Karl Anthony Towns is already coming. They got $220 million paid to him. I think he's already locked up on his contract. That's why they had to make the money match with the other teams. But you look at him, I think they just have to lock up Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges is not signing his extension until next year because he can only sign for 2 years right now.
Mm-hmm.
Next year, if he waits, he can sign for at least 4 years to get more guaranteed money, right? So that makes the most obvious sense. So you look at their starting five. It hasn't been announced yet, but I would believe that it's going to be Karl Anthony Towns, obviously at center. You're going to have OG Anunoby. You're going to have Josh Hart. You're going to have Mikal Bridges. And you're obviously going to have Jalen Brunson, right? With that top five starting for the New York Knicks, playing in the Eastern Conference, if anything less than a number 4 seed is a complete disappointment. You talk about things from the Minnesota side. Minnesota, they weren't really utilizing Cat to his best strengths. They already had a center there anyway. So, true center, Rudy Gobert, multiple times defensive player of the year. So, they're not really going to be losing too much there. But, Julius Randle is going to be able to, supplement some of that scoring. And I think Dante DiVincenzo is going to give them a good punch off the bench if he's not starting. Had a really good season for the Knicks last season. But, yeah, the Knicks won the trade. They're going to be relevant for the next 4 years. I don't see the Timberwolves getting back to the Western Conference Finals next year. And, we'll see what happens going forward. What do you guys think?
You think Naz Reid will start?
Naz Reid's going to be a 6-man because I think we were discussing earlier that Julius Randle should probably take his spot. I think
he'll be the 4.
Yeah, I think Naz Reid coming off the bench just make the most sense. You just brought in Julius Randle. You definitely don't want him coming off the bench, so I think he'll start in his position. So what do you guys?
We got our resident Knicks fan here. What you think this does for your team? Does this make a difference?
Yes, here's the motherfucking deal from a real motherfucking Knicks fan. All right, so at first I saw the trade. I'm like, what the fuck, bro? We just traded Julius Randle. The guy, if it wasn't for Julius Randle, the Knicks would not be relevant right now at all. Let's keep it a buck. Jalen Brunson wouldn't be wanting to come over here if it wasn't for Julius Randle.
Okay.
So I'm like, what the fuck, bro? Where's the loyalty? How we gonna do that? So initially, I'm pissed off, and I already don't like Karl Anthony Towns. He has a history for being soft. I don't like that. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's mentally tough. He has shown that in the past. I don't like that, and I did not want that for this Knicks team. This trade has been rumored for a while now. And I did not want that. So when I heard that, I was pissed off. We got rid of DiVincenzo. This guy just broke the record for the most threes in Knicks history.
They fucked up the Nova boys.
I'm pissed off. Gave it a couple days. I think about it for a little bit. And I'm like, all right. Well, Karl Anthony Towns isn't, he's not. It's not like he's a bad player.
All-star last season.
He's an all-star, and he's a big reason why his team made it to the Western Conference Finals. He's a big reason why they were able to knock off the defending champions in the Nuggets and Nikola Jokic.
He's low-key the best big man shooting big man.
That is a very fair argument.
He averaged like 39% last season. I think he's a 40% shooter from the 3.
Yeah, he's a very good shooter from the 3 line. So, it definitely opens up the Knicks offense. There's definitely potential there. My concern now with the Knicks is the bench. I don't believe that the bench is that deep now that you got rid of DiVincenzo.
You got Cameron Paynes.
We have Cameron Payne.
Mitchell Robinson.
Mitchell Robinson, when he gets
Jericho
healthy,
Sims.
he's probably going to start when he does, but we'll see.
Start over who?
We'll see what Thibodeau does. That's another thing we can
He's not
get
going
to.
to start.
Okay, that's arguable, but
I mean,
I think
Nah,
you can
that's not
still.
arguable.
I think
No,
the
no, no.
only way he'll start is if you move Josh Hart to the bench, and then you
There's
got.
just no argument.
But you
over
got,
it.
but you
There-
got,
there
but
is
you
an
go
argument.
Brunson, you'll go Brunson, Bridges, OG. Oh, then
You
who's-
can
who's-
still
oh,
you can
no,
still
you go-
use Karl
yeah.
Anthony Towns at the 4. He has been used at the 4 with Rudy Gobert, who's an even bigger center than Mitchell Robinson. So there's no reason why you wouldn't possibly consider having Towns next to Mitchell Robinson at least some of the time, even if you don't start it. So that's why I say it's debatable. Now, so also what I was saying with the Knicks, you get rid of DiVincenzo. I'm not sure if it was confirmed.
Who's enough shooting for us now? Well,
Yeah.
us, like I'm a Knicks fan, but
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was confirmed that DiVincenzo actually said that he doesn't want to come off the bench. I feel like he would have at least did it for a championship shot with the Knicks, but not everyone wants to reduce the time that they was playing.
And
He played a lot.
he literally helped carry the Knicks.
He definitely
to
was
where
a
they got
very
last year.
big part of the team, and without him, they probably don't get as far. So, yeah, again, my concern with the Knicks now is the bench. Do you have enough to get by teams like Philadelphia and the Celtics who have deep benches?
I do think that both teams, like, excuse me, I do think both teams didn't make a great decision. I think both teams is gonna lack, and
In what?
I think, let's say,
defensively, offensively.
I think both. I think, well, let's say DiVincenzo, he was a quick bucket when the Knicks was down. He would give them quick buckets all the time.
Because he's a 3-point shooter.
He's a
so,
3-point
yeah.
shooter, and they're losing that. I think.
I mean, they
You don't necessarily lose it because
because
if
Karl
you think
Anthony Towns
about
is a
it,
good 3-point shooter.
well, yes, Karl Anthony Towns is a 3-point shooter, but who replaces DiVincenzo in the lineup now is Mikal Bridges. He's also a way better defender, and he can knock down some threes. So I don't look at it as a downgrade. Again, it's just the bench.
But they
for
needed
me.
him off the bench, though.
Yeah, that I agree with that. DiVincenzo off the bench is like a very big part of your team, and that makes your team very stronger. So without him, the bench is concerning again, in my opinion.
I do think the Timberwolves did have something going, and they drafted Towns, and I don't know. I think they had something building, and especially with the 1 and 2 with Anthony Edwards and Towns, it's definitely gonna be an adjustment. And
We don't think Bridges' new jump shot is gonna affect it in any way.
I did see the clip of the new jumper. I trust it. At the end of the day, he's always been a fairly good shooter throughout his career. So
But
if he
changing
feels
your
like,
jump shot after like
yeah, I mean we've seen
25 years of playing like that. Like,
we've
well,
seen,
what,
we've
15
seen
years?
players do make adjustments to their jump shot, and if they're making adjustments to their jump shot, it's usually for the better. And if he's not doing good with it, he can always go back to it. I'm not concerned if he's changing his jump shot. It's obviously for a good reason. He feels like it's gonna help him, so I don't think it's gonna affect his shooting. I'm not concerned with his jump shot being worse than it was last year. If anything, he's probably just making an adjustment to be better.
Yeah, like maybe a quicker release.
Yeah,
Pull
whatever
it
it
from
is,
the
I'm
angle.
not concerned about that.
So why do you think the Timberwolves didn't get better?
I mean, Randall is coming off an injury. He's not. I don't think even though he could be healthy, I don't think you're not really healthy until you play
Yeah,
and get at least a full year in.
I'm confused. Who do you think won the trade then? You think they?
both teams lost.
I think both teams lost.
So.
I don't think the trade made sense.
Makes
Too much
sense.
sense at all.
So, like, I know from a Minnesota perspective that Minnesota had to make the trade for money. I
Because
know a lot of us talked about that, right?
Yeah.
They paying Anthony Edwards a ridiculous amount of money. They're paying
And
Cat a
Rudy Gobert.
ridiculous amount of money, and they just traded it for Rudy Gobert, who's doing exactly what they need him to do, playing defense and winning.
Yeah, you
like,
can't
accolades.
pay all three of those guys.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I
And
mean,
rebounding.
you paying all the three guys in excess of $200 million. So
Mhm.
I feel like if the Minnesota Timberwolves had it
But
their
don't they
way,
gotta sign Julius Randle now?
I
Because
mean,
he was coming
Julius-
up for an extension as well.
I mean, he was coming up for an extension, but you got to imagine that whatever extension he's going to be up for is going to be sizably less than whatever
Yeah,
the
what
200
Towns-
plus million that Towns had on the books, right? So, and it makes sense. I mean, they can get, Julius Randle can get included in a signing trade if they don't agree to terms. They have a lot of flexibility now going forward, whereas in terms of with Karl Anthony Towns, I mean, there's not a lot of flexibility when you got 200 plus million, on your books. It's
Mhm.
like, what can you really do with that? He has at least 3 to 4 years
Yeah.
on his contract. So I mean, from that aspect, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I feel like Minnesota had to make the trade. You know what I mean? Just from a money perspective, from a business perspective.
It's a small market. They definitely can't afford
Right.
the money that.
But when you look at what they got back in return as well, I mean, Julius Randle, like you said, made the Knicks relevant. I think he's gonna fit in seamlessly right next to Anthony Edwards. He's not gonna be expected to do as much. You know what I mean?